You are listening to the Football Diehards podcast with your hosts, Justin Lonero and Bob Harris, sponsored by DraftKings. Sign up now using promo code DIEHARDS, DIEHARDS. Make a first-time $5 deposit, and you'll receive a free $3 ticket.
Hello and welcome to the Football Diehards podcast. I'm your host, Justin Lonero, on Twitter at Justin Lonero, along with my co-host, as always, Bob Harris, at Football Diehard on Twitter, and our executive producer, Kyle Dvorchak, at FF Kyle the Kid on Twitter, is with us this evening. Mr. Harris, Week 7, what's good in Albuquerque, New Mexico this evening?
All good. It's the balloon festivals here. I mean, the air is filled with hot air balloons like you've never seen, thousands of them at any given moment. So it's a joyous thing. I don't go out much, but I sometimes hear them flying over the
That's
compound.
Cool.
Yeah.
We actually have that in Canton, Ohio. Don't feel too awfully special.
Oh, it's a big one here. I've been to Canton, Ohio. I've seen how you guys operate there.
Have you been here for the balloon festival? We have a balloon festival.
He goes every year.
It's our main attraction. Is that
this is the world's biggest balloon festival here. Come on. I Canton, Ohio, where if the plane breaks at the airport, they have to drive the part down from Cleveland. I've been to Canton.
No, we have a backup Cessna. There's a one-engine Cessna that flies two people out.
All
you
right,
guys had lunch. You had lunch in Canton. You guys had breakfast in Canton.
We had breakfast together. And I'm a little sad that it happened before the big DFS wins started piling up.
I know.
I could have bought you our hotel breakfast for sure.
You could have bought me the hotel breakfast that I actually could have got for free, but I was very honest to the servers. Let's start looking at a couple developments from, heading into Week 7, and maybe a little beyond, and we'll start out with a little bit beyond. With the latest on Le'Veon Bell is there is no latest on Le'Veon Bell. I talked to earlier this evening, it's Tuesday, we talked to Will Graves of the Associated Press, who covers the Steelers on a daily basis, pinned him to the ground, slapped him silly, and begged him to tell us when Le'Veon Bell was going to show up. And he basically said, who knows, but probably Monday. So let's say he is back heading into the Cleveland game for Week 8. There's a lot of possible things that could go on, some chicanery by the Steelers. And I say chicanery, it's totally legal. They can put him on the roster exempt list and negotiate a lowered salary. Maybe that's a no-go. Maybe that's just something that Bell won't deal with and it doesn't work out, whatever. But let's assume Le'Veon Bell against the Cleveland Browns is active and playing. You're a James Conner owner. What are you doing?
I can't see, as an organization, well, first of all, there's two different people we're talking about here. We're talking about what it seems like a greedy guy, and then you're talking about James Conner, who is a great story with the cancer. He's from the area, and he's performing at a high level. So it's hard to imagine. I mean, we were talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick a couple weeks ago. How can you move Fitzpatrick? And that happened quick. But how can you not give James Conner the football often? And look, Le'Veon Bell's a special talent. We know he's a bull. He lives on the field. But James Conner seems to be special, and the organization likes him. So I think it would behoove. The problem is the ball is in Le'Veon Bell's court. So he's got to, in terms of financial contractual stuff. So I think if they were to put Le'Veon Bell in the game, it's going to take him time to get back to game speed, but it would be a split at first. And I think, look, going forward, I think the organization likes James Conner, and I think Le'Veon Bell needs to start fresh elsewhere.
I think we've seen there's been all kinds of tweets out there that basically James Conner, the level of productivity matches or exceeds in certain measurables that of Le'Veon Bell's. But I think this is the thing we should look at this like fantasy owners, and I'm guessing the Steelers will look at this the same way as well. And how it plays out the rest of this season, we'll see. But one thing that Will Graves mentioned, and I do think it's a valid point, is Le'Veon Bell views himself as a unicorn. Mm-hmm. The best running back in football and probably one of the best 10 receivers in football in the NFL. Whether he is or not, I mean, that's open debate, but that's how he sees himself. And he wants to be paid as such. And so if you're the Steelers and you look and here's this guy who's been reasonably productive, has had his third game of at least 100 yards and 2 scores in the first 6 weeks. Only 4 other players in NFL history have done that. So you have him already on the cheap. Why are you gonna, what are you gonna do with Le'Veon Bell? They're gonna let him move on anyway. But I don't know why you would, need further looking at Le'Veon Bell. I don't know why they're rushing him in the lineup. We'll see. From a fantasy perspective, it's a tough question in terms of who are you going to play. I mean, when Bell's back, if you've been holding on to Bell this long, Kyle Dvorchak, how are you going to be able to avoid sticking him in your lineup as fast as you can?
Yeah, the only way, I think, if he does announce that he's coming back, and I think it's funny, Ben Roethlisberger, after their last game, they said, you know, what do you think about James Conner? He said, he's great, but it's a shame we'll have to get rid of him next week because Bell's coming back, everybody. And then a reporter was like, oh, is that true? He's like, of course, I don't know. Nobody knows. He doesn't tell anyone. So we don't know anything yet, and I think once he announces if he's coming back or not, we should get more information. So right now it's a waiting game, and if we really don't get any more information beyond that once he says he's coming back, if you're in the dire straits, if you need every game a win from here on out, you're probably playing for that upside and you're playing him. If not, if you're still very much having a successful fantasy season, I think you can wait one more game to find out who they're going to use because we really won't know until they get on the field.
Right, the slow ramp up last season upon arrival for Bell, you know, kind of a 3-week ramp up to full workload was a bit worrisome. And I mean, I think for me the best hope now, and I've held on to him in some leagues, is that he is Le'Veon Bell right about when I start my fantasy playoffs, and that I'm able to make the playoffs in those leagues where I've been stupid enough to hold him. So with that out of the way, there a little bit of news in Atlanta today. Matt Bryant won't be kicking this week. Big news there. No. Aside from that, Devonta Freeman goes on injured reserve, going to have surgery on his groin. Look, we kind of, this kind of has been coming. It started out the knee, then turned into the foot, then turned into groin. You see this with high-end athletes, sometimes the compensatory issues when they start favoring something and trying to work through it. So anyway, he's done for the year. Ito Smith and Tevin Coleman taking the lead role. Look, they split this workload pretty evenly. I think there's two waiver wire players, maybe three if I throw in Marlon Mack here, but it's going to be Ito Smith, maybe Marlon Mack, and Marquise Goodwin are three huge waiver wire targets this week. How would you rank them, Justin? Let's say you just needed a running back. Would you take Smith over Marlon Mack? Or are you playing the potential upside of Mack's maybe more fulsome role?
I'm going to go Marlon Mack. I mean, I wrote him up in our magazine, Football Diehards, and I'm on team Marlon Mack. I mean, there were some early LaShawn McCoy comparisons to him. I think Nyheim Hines is going to have a role, the James White role, and a healthy Marlon Mack, we're going to see him get 15, 20 touches each week. I'm a little hesitant on Smith at this point, but it's certainly an interesting situation with Freeman out now. I mean, we know Tevin Coleman is in a contract year, and Tevin Coleman was Devontae's yin to the yang, and now I think Smith is going to, kind of play behind Tevin Coleman. 5'9", 195, didn't do much last week. He's been kind of a popular name. I'd like to see more.
Scored some touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. But we're not accustomed to seeing such a bad backfield. I mean, they're ranked 29th in rushing. I mean,
right. I don't know if it's the backfield or more the scheme and the situation they've been in, because their defense is horrible and puts them in a situation where they're playing catch up an awful lot. I think Smith has been on the field in fortuitous positions is one of the things that intrigues me. But I think you're right. For me, Marlon Mack is a guy that, if you're looking down the road as opposed to immediate contribution, an immediate contribution Mack is making, comes in as the running back one, but maybe he can establish a foothold and turn into the guy they basically expected him to be coming into the season. Kyle, Marquise Goodwin, all summer long, everyone in San Francisco chimed in with the same mantra that Marquise Goodwin was ready to become the true wide receiver one that the 49ers have needed. And all that was with Jimmy Garoppolo, that we saw, the chemistry. We thought, wow, that's great. And you kind of bought into the whole notion. So he came back this week against Green Bay and Monday Night Football and caught a couple touchdowns. And I guess the immediate question that most of us had was, where's his chemistry with C.J. Beathard? Apparently it's okay. Not often do you have wide receiver ones come leaping into the fray in week 7. How eager are you to get some of that?
I mean, do I think he will be a wide receiver one? Will he do what he did last night? Or
NFL wide receiver one.
Yeah. Well, this will come out. Have been a few nights ago. Do I think he'll be doing that every week? Of course not. This is still a C.J. Beathard-led offense. Let's, everyone pump the brakes a little bit. But he does appear, when you watch him, to have that Tyreek Hill As we saw, Albert Wilson, game-breaking speed, and that for the weekly upside, that's great, and you should be expending a large portion of your fab budget. If you still have, say, 50, 60% left, we haven't had any crazy waiver wire guys yet. He's worth spending the rest of your fab budget on, assuming you won't need to, save a little bit for your streaming quarterbacks, defenses, and kickers, of course, but blow a majority of your fab budget on him unless you need one of the running backs we're talking about, because any week he does have the upside that we saw on that Monday night game. Will he have a consistent floor? Probably not. You really can't have a consistent floor on a CJ Beathard offense, assuming it's not what we just saw, and I don't think it will be. I think it'll be more of what we saw from last year from CJ Beathard, but he does have that weekly game-breaking upside, and that's worth playing nearly every week and rostering 100% of the time.
I'd like to think it's a Kyle Shanahan offense, and that the quarterback who's been in there now a full year in CJ Beathard has picked it up enough. I think the thing that is easy to forget about Marquise Goodwin is this guy is when he's on the field, he's probably the best athlete on the field.
Yep.
He's an Olympic long jumper, sprinter, 60 meters, 100 meters, triple jump. I mean, this guy is a true athlete, Olympic level athlete. So I find him pretty appealing. I think he'll be my top waiver wire pickup when I can get him, along with the rest of those guys. Wanted to touch base on again, we're talking about a 2018 season in which the scoring is happening at a torrid pace. I think this makes it enjoyable from a fantasy perspective because we like the points, and it's been great watching football, right, you guys? I mean, Thursday night games, Monday night games, Sunday, Thursday night games used to be, they were desolate, they were horrible, moribund games, and now they're among the most exciting. And we saw one on Sunday Night Football, the Patriots and the Chiefs put up a ton of points. Justin, is there a Kansas City Chief we can't play right now?
No. I think you have to. It's like an all-star game. We were watching the game the other night, and it was just a back and forth. Vegas had the over/under set up at 60.
Yeah.
Lot of juice, a lot of fantasy goodness on both sides of the field, and I think that the Kareem Hunt that we wanted to see is coming to life as well. So they have balance. We always talk about balance. Kareem Hunt is being Kareem Hunt. And it's nice to see Sony Michel do his thing. A bell cow, gentlemen. Look, that is going to make one hell of an AFC championship game with points. It's what the league wants. It's what we want as fans. And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch with Julian Edelman back. I mean, Flash was on the field just as much as Julian Edelman. So it's nice to see Gordon kind of revitalize his career. Obviously, they've modified the playbook for him. But, wow, think about that, gentlemen. AFC Championship, Kansas City Chiefs, New England Patriots could be a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch.
That'd be a DFS thing. I don't care. My season longs will be over. But Kyle, you mentioned Sony Michel. Look, it looks like we're finally untying the Gordian knot of fantasy football backfields, or we've just moved it to Detroit. The Robert Quinn and Matt Patricia have taken it from New England and moved it to Detroit, where we'll never know what the hell's going on there. But Sony Michel is a guy they're clearly going to ride. We've seen it the last 3 games. We've seen it under all circumstances, right? When they're playing ahead, when they're playing from behind, when they're Sony Michel is getting a heavy workload. It's not making James White he's still a viable play every single week. They're getting all the pieces of this offense back together. I wonder if you think, does this mean at some point Rob Gronkowski turns into the guy I drafted him to be?
I would say that this may be one of the better weaponized teams for the Patriots we've seen in the past few years. They've had a much more concentrated attack, specifically looking at Rob Gronkowski. So I don't know if we'll see, I think going into the season, we almost expected that this could be the year that he has a career season. I think that's out of the question now. That is out of the question now, even if you just look at it from this point going forward. I do think, though, as this team gets its footing, we saw in the first few weeks they looked a bit off. The scoring will normalize, and Gronk should come back to maybe not everything you thought he'd live up to, but I think if you wanted to buy Gronk in your season-long leagues, this would be the time to do so. I do think it will be better from here on out than it has been up to this point.
I would kind of agree with that. And I just say, look, I think, again, this is a season of scoring. A lot of teams are doing it right. The Chiefs are doing it as right as anybody. Their defense is helping them out. We're seeing a lot of defensive help for our fantasy fortunes, whether it's Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Pittsburgh. A lot of teams not playing great defense, and we love that. And we love it for our DFS too, don't we, Justin?
We certainly do. We certainly do. Actually, Justin,
that was your cue. I'll cut this out. That was your cue.
I just zoned out. I'm looking at some statistics. Can you repeat the question?
Justin, that was your cue to get. That was your cue for the drop. That was your cue for the.
Go ahead and do your read.
Well, at least the timing was good.
It was beautiful.
This podcast, as you know, gentlemen, is sponsored by DraftKings. Bragging rights and huge cash prizes are up for grabs this weekend, all season long at DraftKings. The leader of 1 week fantasy sports. DraftKings has paid out over $5 billion in prizes to date. And this week, you can enter a contest for free with your first deposit, Kyle, using promo code DIEHARD. DIEHARDS. Our friend Sigmund Bloom says that in the intro, because nothing makes fantasy football Sunday more exciting. You have a DraftKings lineup, and you're not married to any of these players. When your season-long teams are tanking, head over to DraftKings.
Yeah, I think we all can agree there is nothing better than watching the Sunday ticket blaring at you from one TV, the other games blaring from the other TVs, your lineups in front of you on your various handheld and computer devices. Yes, it's a joyous thing, especially if you're Kyle Dvorchak, because you actually win money doing it, as opposed to me and Justin, who apparently are just evil laggards who barely break even on a regular basis. So, that being the case, I want to ask you, Kyle, we'll start with you. What's the big game for you this week and for everyone else?
Yeah, when you're looking at big games, really what you're doing, we talk about it every week, is you're targeting these high over-unders. And if you want to get sneaky, maybe you look for a game that is that next tier of over-unders. And what I'm looking at right now is there are a few games as you move in later into the day, if you're playing on slates that go through the end of Sunday as opposed to the 1 o'clock or the 1 through 4 slates. A lot of high ones there, but I'm looking a little bit lower. Right now, a 49.5 over under. Cleveland Browns, Tampa Bay. Browns defense has not been great throughout the year, and as we know, Tampa Bay has been atrocious. Both of them have weapons that I'm looking at, though. You've got the entire passing attack as great ways to get in on this game for Tampa Bay, and I think it's a bit more concentrated in Cleveland. You're looking at Carlos Hyde has been getting the ball a ton, and Jarvis Landry's been getting a ton of targets, so you may know exactly what to do there. And then Tampa Bay gives you a lot of options to work with. Justin, do you have a game you're looking at?
I tend to agree there. I'm looking at the Chicago Bears New England Patriots game. I think there's some fantasy goodness in that game. Mitch Trubisky has been off the hook. And the Patriots, we saw the shootout. We just talked about that. So I think Trubisky's certainly in play. The over-under is 49.5. And I'm certainly with you as far as the Bucs and the Cleveland Browns. It'd be nice to see playing Jarvis Landry, not doing what we want him to do, although David Njoku is, and we certainly like that. I think, prior to me blacking out, gentlemen, a few minutes ago, it was interesting because we're talking about the main slate this weekend on DraftKings, which is 10 games, and I'm not finding the Kansas City Chiefs game at Arrowhead against Cincinnati, which has a over-under right under 60. So that's, if you want to know why I passed out a few minutes ago, it's because I was digging around for some of that fantasy goodness in that game. It is not on the main slate, but I am coherent. I am back, and I'm awake. I'm not dead. So that's
30 out of
good.
4 ain't bad.
So that's good. But it's an interesting week. I mean, the buys are here. The buys are in full effect. But if there's one game, it's certainly going to be the Patriots and the Chicago Bears. And I will stack that game mightily, as well as the game you just talked about, Kyle.
Yeah, I think I like the Browns and Buccaneers because the Buccaneers, they're horrible. They fired their defensive coordinator, Mike Smith. I don't know that will give them any immediate help in terms of slowing down the opposition. I think, look, the Saints and Ravens is an interesting game to me just because can the Ravens defense keep playing at the same level? How much will you be fading Saints this week, Justin? Or will you be? Is it maybe a nice contrarian play?
It's a great question. I mean, because past defense have been good. They've been plugging the run. And, of course, there's some fantasy goodness with the New Orleans Saints. It'd be interesting. Alvin Kamara is under 9K. You have Mark Ingram back. So, there's a red 1 under the OPRK. So a lot of people are going to be scared of Alvin Kamara. Are you going to play him in cash games? Probably not. It is in Baltimore, so I think there's room for concern there. You're getting Michael Thomas under 8K. You're going to have some of them, and I don't think any of them are going to be highly owned, particularly Drew Brees. I mean, way down is Drew Brees in that game. I probably want some Joe Flacco with Smokey. Their backfield has been ambiguous, not really delightful to watch, in my opinion, but I think it would behoove us every week to have some Saints, and I'll probably sprinkle in certainly some Michael Thomas, and I'll have Alvin Kamara in tournaments.
Right, and I guess there's another, sometimes we get, Kyle, perceptions of things like, the Rams made a lot of moves on defense. That defense must be great, but it's not.
No.
And again, I don't want to go all 49er crazy because they are the 49ers and CJ Beathard is the quarterback, but do you see some possible plays there that might be of interest to you?
Yeah, of course, I'm always willing to look at that offense specifically just because we do have crazy playmakers. Matt Breida is averaging a crazy yards per carry this season. Marquise Goodwin is as electric as ever. But I think because of that offense, I think that's so important that we look at the offense as a whole and specifically looking at their quarterback. I'm not too excited about a CJ Beathard offense, but I am excited about their playmakers. So I think they're good tournament plays. And George Kittle with the volume he's getting is a great cash play. If you ask me about that later, you will get George Kittle as a cash tight end. But mainly because the players I'm looking at are Matt Breida and Marquise Goodwin. They're both big play type guys. That's highly volatile. That's a move I'm looking to only make in tournaments. But if you find volume in any offense, even if it's one that I'm not super excited about, like George Kittle, I think there are still worthwhile options.
Looking forward to more of that Kittle talk ahead. Foreshadowing. Justin, let's look at just quarterbacks in general. I want a cash play that you must play and a tournament play that you like.
Well, I'm probably going to play Kirk Cousins at the Jets. I mean, we love the talent surrounding him. He's averaging right over 24 fantasy points a game. We love Stephon Diggs. We love Adam Thielen, who's arguably the best wide receiver in the game. Latavius Murray went ham last week. Gentlemen, it's a position where, and we know it's a pass-happy league, you can go anywhere. In fact, the Millionaire Maker winner last week, who won $1 million on DraftKings, had Brock Osweiler, gentlemen. Dak Prescott lit up the Jaguars at home, rushed for as many yards for the most yards in Dallas since Roger Staubach. There's a number of directions that we can go. We just talked about the Saints-Ravens game. I think Joe Flacco at 5,400 is interesting. I feel like he's pretty damn safe at this point. But it's probably going to be Kirk Cousins at the Jets. But there's 10 different directions we can go. I'm not opposed to Cam Newton at Philadelphia. These are guys with safe floors. But when you look at the numbers and we crunch the numbers, man, Mitch Trubisky's been solid. Bortles, from a fantasy angle, right? Everybody's getting over 20 fantasy points per game. So there's not a ton of terrible directions that we can go. And I think in tournaments, it's a great way to diversify lineups.
Note, Adam Thielen may not be the best, may not be the best wide receiver. He is the most productive. Kyle, quarterback opinions from you, sir.
Yeah, Justin talked about him earlier, but Drew Brees, we talked about it before. DraftKings price is based, at least part of their pricing algorithm is based on the opponent you play. And right now he gets that Ravens defense, which is good, but he's freaking Drew Brees. He's 5,700. That's 10th in salary on the main slate. And he's first in points per game behind technically second behind Ryan Fitzpatrick, but we're going to call it first. Don't overthink it in cash. Drew Brees is so cheap. I'm all over that. And $100 above him, Baker Mayfield, I think, is an interesting tournament play. Pivoting off of Jameis Winston, had a great week. He'll probably be highly owned. I think you take the reverse side of that with Baker Mayfield. And coming up, I'll definitely be looking to stack him with potentially Jarvis Landry, 11 targets per game. I think that's a definite tournament play. And he also, I think, just from watching him, has rushing ability. Could potentially score a rushing touchdown or get some yardage as well.
I promise you Mayfield's going off because I played him in many lineups last week and he didn't. So, at the running back position, Kyle, whether it's cash or tournament, how do you get away from Todd Gurley?
If it's cash, you don't. I believe I saw last week that the cash lineup bar was set higher than the tournament lineup bar because less people played Gurley in tournament. Everyone played him in cash, and everyone had great lineups in cash. He's at 25 DK points in every game. San Francisco is giving up the second most targets, which is where a lot of his value comes from, just because of the way they use him. It's amazing, and I love watching that offense. You don't get away from him. And in tournaments, of course, you want to differentiate your lineups in cash. You're not worried about that, and you are playing so much Gurley in cash. And a little bit in tournaments, too.
Justin, I want a sneaky play. Give me a sneaky play that's going to succeed. Do it now.
Well, I was on Tariq Cohen last week, and I'm going to be back on Tariq Cohen this week, 5,100. We wanted Matt Nagy to do use Tariq Cohen. We've seen the Tyreek Hill comparisons. I'm fine with it. 33 points week 4 against the Bucs. Last week at Miami, he had 24 DraftKings points. I'm fine with it. I think Marlon Mack is in play now that he's back, if we're going to be sneaky. But I can't see you getting off Todd Gurley at all, 31 DraftKings points a game, or Ezekiel Elliott for that matter. I mean, he's been not as good, but I'll tell you, Ezekiel Elliott, gentlemen, we talk about Saquon Barkley, Todd Gurley. Zeke Elliott is right there in the mix, and every single week I'm going to want Ezekiel Elliott. He feels like he's a safe play. So and Sony Michel, based on volume, James White's price came up. It's right under $7K, so I can't see myself paying for James White. It's kind of eeny, meeny, miny, mo in New England. So I'm going to go with Michel based on volume, because I think that Sony Michel, now that he's healthy, we're going to see that first-round pick that Bill Belichick is going to ride. It's kind of contrarian against a stingy Bears defense, but he's going to get the ball between 20 and 25 times, and we're paying for volume there at 5,500.
Top cash plays at wide receiver, Justin, not in your favorite games. Not in the Bears and the Patriots.
Oh, it's going to be Alshon. I think it's going to be Alshon Jeffrey at home against Carolina. I mean, this is Chicago Bears, Alshon Jeffrey that we're seeing now. Clear rapport with Carson Wentz. We like that. He's had over 27 points in 2 of the last 3 weeks. I'm certainly on him. I think without Cooper Kupp with the Rams, I think that we're going to have to look at some Robert Woods. Feels safer than Brandon Cooks week to week. And I like me some Julian Edelman at 6,600. Feels safe right there. I mean, wide receiver is another position that we can certainly diverse ourselves in. I think Stephon Diggs, if we don't want to pay up for Adam Thielen, we can pay down. I think you can get equal production any given week out of Stephon Diggs. If I'm going way down, gentlemen, I think that there's 3 names. I mean, we could fall into some bear traps here, but Albert Wilson, there's something going on down there. Maybe Osweiler likes Wilson. We all thought it was going to be Amendola, Kenny Stills. It looks like it's Wilson. Taylor Gabriel, because we want a part of that Bears-Patriots game. And gentlemen, Cole Beasley looked like, Cole Beasley is a poor man's Julian Edelman. So if I'm paying way down, those are the 3 that I like at the bottom.
I'm just saying, when you explicitly tell the man not to go to his go-to game and he does, he likes that game.
Yeah.
Because I got a stick. I might use it. Kyle, please amend on wide receivers. Disabuse us of any of the notions that Justin just gave us. Confirm, co-sign, or amend, if you will.
Yeah, I had a Julian Edelman cash for sure. I was trying to figure out a way to say that without bringing up that game again. But he's a good cash play. 7 targets, 9 targets in both of his games, 50 yards, and he scored once. I think he's a good cash play. Golden Tate, another good cash play for a similar reason. He's got 20 points in 3 of his games so far, 7 targets in every game. Miami's defense isn't that good. I know through the first few weeks they looked to have potential. Then we saw them get shredded against the Bears. I like the Lions offense, and I like Golden Tate every week, so he's a safe volume play. Looking at tournaments, another guy Justin brought up earlier in the show, John Smokey Brown, 3rd in the league in air yards, got nearly a 20 average depth of target. That's a very volatile thing to do, betting on guys who only go for deep balls, but in tournaments, that is a volatility we love. And then looking at guys, DeAndre Hopkins, 6,900, priced down a bit because of a scary Jags defense.
Yeah.
They're a great defense. Don't get me wrong. I know last week I think they got put up 40 by Dallas. I don't expect that to happen every week. Teams like Dallas come in and put 40 on them. But I do think they're a great defense. I think DeAndre Hopkins is better. He's done well against shadow coverage whenever he's played against corners who stick with him the whole game. 10.5 targets per game and top 12 in red zone targets. But very few people will be on him because of this Jags defense, and that's the type of move I'm looking for in tournaments.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I'll buy that. And then, by the way, I mean, that wasn't your favorite game. It was Justin's favorite game. So you were free to go in that direction.
I have a pass.
You had a free pass. And now I have high expectations, though. Tell me all about George Kittle and how great he's going to be and how many lineups he will be in your many slates. And who else do you like at the position, by the way?
Yeah, George Kittle, the tight end slate got a little better. I believe we got Gronk and Ertz back on the main slate for tight ends. I know last week we didn't have any of our elite tight ends, But still $5K for George Kittle. You'll pay up a little bit for him because I know we like to pay down in a lot of our spots. But in cash, I'm fine with giving a little more for him. The Rams have given up 27.3 points in their past 3 games, which is stark contrast from it was like single-digit points they were giving up in their first 2 games because they played Arizona and Oakland, I believe, and just... Yeah, of course you're going to give up single-digit points. Those offenses are terrible. Now we're seeing that they've been plagued by injuries a little bit. I know they've lost players in their secondary, and their defense is giving up points now. The Niners offense showed they can move. I know I've talked about them as not being flashy, but they can move. They're not the Bills offense. They're not even, the Cardinals offense. They're a step above them, and George Kittle is the guy they're working through right now, and that volume is what we're looking for in cash. $5K is a worthwhile price for George Kittle.
Give me a tournament play at that position, Justin, and it must win me money.
Oh, I blacked out again. You guys mentioned tight end, and I blacked out again. That's twice in one show. Hey, we're getting a Rob Gronkowski discount. We're not accustomed to that. He's going to be Rob Gronkowski eventually. I think this is a good week. If I'm going to pay up, I'm probably not. I'm certainly not going to spend $7,100 on Zach Ertz. Doesn't make any sense to me. But there are 2 names that jumped out at me because of the price, and I think because I like the Bears game. So I'm going to have some Trey Burton at $4,300. I'm going to have some David Njoku easing in, developing a rapport with Baker Mayfield. 12 targets week 6, 11 targets week 5. This is the freak, the specimen that was drafted round 1 with O.J. Howard and Evan Ingram last year. So I'm fine with those 2. I'm a little hesitant to pay $5K for a guy like Kittle. I'll say this because I want to talk about Marquise Goodwin for 1 second. He's that home run hitter we talk about that is John Brown. It's a beautiful thing to see. $4,600 was the price for Goodwin, and it's nice to see because I've been touting him all offseason. So he's the only piece of the San Francisco 49ers offense I'm going to have is Goodwin. I can't get on Kittle at $5K, but I do like Njoku and Burton.
Are there any defenses that must be played this week, Justin?
I don't know that there's a defensive that's a must any week because our guest that we had on this show, Josh Hermsmeyer, there's been some buzz on Twitter about how defenses doesn't matter. Well, a lot of don't matter. A lot of things don't matter. What's interesting is the Baltimore Ravens at 2,400 at home. A lot of people are going to think that the Saints are just going to go into Baltimore and go ham. But for 2,400, I think there's going to be some. Obviously, they're not going to have 11 sacks again this week, but I'm fine playing the Baltimore Ravens to save a bunch of money at 2,400. Now, we do like home defenses. I do as well, and I think the Jaguars are pissed off. Jalen Ramsey didn't have a ton to say. Bad offensive line for the Houston Texans going into to Jacksonville, 3,600. I think I'm fine. I think they bounce back.
Kyle?
One thing I'm really interested in tracking, it sounds gross. It sounds gross, but I'm interested in tracking which quarterback will start for the Bills because Nathan Peterman has been so atrocious for fantasy. I want that because I want to play the Indy defense against them. I will play a bunch of toddlers catching interceptions from Nathan Peterman, let alone Indy defense, which is a professional defense that has been better than expectation at some points. Anybody playing Nathan Peterman is a guy I have to get on for 3,300. That's a move. And also Detroit defense, only 2,400. If I'm paying down for defense, I want a defense that could face Brock Lobster. I know he looked good last week, but the clock will strike midnight on him, and he'll turn back into a pumpkin. That's
right.
It's Brock Osweiler, guys. Let's not get carried away here. He's bad.
There's film on him. They'll get it figured out. But before we get too carried away, we don't yet know that it will be Brock Osweiler starting. We'll find that out as the week progresses. You'll want to tune into footballdiehards.com for all the latest news and updates and injuries and all that kind of sort of things. And the same with the Buffalo situation. My guess is, come on, you've seen enough Nathan Peterman, guys. He's lost you enough games. You don't know how many Derek Anderson can lose you, but you know how many Nathan Peterman can lose you because he lost you one last week to go with the ones he lost you last week. Anyhow, so rousing edition, fellows. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Hey, guys, we're on Google. Kyle, we're on Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes. Leave a review on any of those outlets. The feedback has been terrific on iTunes. And, again, you want to check us out on Twitter. Kyle is bombarded with questions every week. Bob and I are not. But we will answer your questions on Twitter. DM us. We do have gentlemen. We have a Football Diaries podcast Twitter handle as well, so you can visit us there. The show is always posted.
Please do.
Yeah, Justin, I know. You're telling me. I set all that shit up. That's me.
That's right.
But yeah,
that's true.
Of course, check out the Football Diehards, the Twitter pod, and as always, check us out. Check Bob out at Football Diehard, Justin at Justin Lonero, myself at FF Kyle the Kid. Thanks for tuning in.